morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Rebecca, and today we're going to recap day 4 and 5 of the live trial for the death of Elijah McClain. This is a 23-year-old black male who was um, autistic, I believe, although I've heard no testimony thus far about who he is or what was going on with him. But he was reported as suspicious walking down the street after he left Shell convenience store because he had picked up a couple of iced tea, but he was wearing a black ski mask and a long sleeve jacket in August. uh, 70 degrees out, 10:30 at night, and people thought this was strange. So they called the police. The police approached him. They ended up in a tussle, and they had to do what they call pain control techniques and carotid, where they cut off the blood flow to his brain to get him to pass out so they could. Anyway, it's a whole big tussle. So there were 3 police officers that were charged with reckless manslaughter or reckless homicide out of this, and now we're sitting through the trial of 2 of the firefighter paramedics who responded to the scene to do a medical check. So that's where we're at. But first, if you joined me last night, I started this little project and I finished it. How cute is this? Wow, it's beautiful. So I put a candle behind it. I took a cute little picture. Yeah, that, that's it. I'm decorated for Christmas. Just kidding. I got my gnomes back here. See my gnomes? My Christmas gnomes are out. The tree is right here. It's not decorated. I need to decorate. But first, we're going to do the 12 Days of Christmas from diamondpaintingdrills.com. Yes, there's a link down in the description. This Advent thing is no longer available. It's sold out, but they have some wonderful stocking stuffers for your diamond painting friends. So let's see I think we're up to day 6 now. On the 6th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. What is it? I don't know. Okay, never mind. I'm terrible. Look how cute. Candy canes, candy canes. And I just love how she did that. So I'm saving all of those. I don't know what it is. She gift wrapped each one separately. It's so adorable. Oh, washi tape. Cute, 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 cute. And oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Okay, so stickers for when you kit up your paintings. And I still have my large, like the big diamond painting that I'm doing next year is called Firebird Panorama. It's huge. So you can label your storage system when you're kitting up. And there's some, God forbid you have 77 colors, but there are some like that. Oh, wait a minute, 99 colors. Then all the alphabet. Oh my gosh. All the DMC numbers. How cute is that? Oh my God, I love it. And the washi tape, where'd it go? Oh, here. This one is white and gold. And this one is just beautiful for Christmas. And you know how I use my washi tape? I don't use it for diamond painting. I use this in my watercolor painting. Yeah, because if I don't get one of those pads where the paper's all glued together in a block, um, and I have my smaller paper, so to speak, I tear it out and I use the washi tape to paint it. And then my larger paper, I section it so that I can do like 4 separate paintings or 2 separate paintings on the same sheet of paper. Oh my God, I am loving this. So we're putting everything in here for now. This is a birthday bag that was given to me by my friend Narrate. This month is my birthday month, December 29th. I'm going to be 29 again. Yep. Oh my gosh, girl. Okay, so let's talk about this trial. And there's a lot to talk about. So the reason I didn't do a regular show yesterday was the next person on the stand on day 4 was the 4th firefighter that was on the scene. So when this call went out for the firefighters, after the police had their tussle with Mr. McLean, they asked for the fire unit to respond to do a medical check. So the call goes out to the fire department, and four firemen respond. The driver of the rig was a firefighter EMT, and then there was another firefighter, and then 2 firefighters paramedics. It's the 2 firefighter paramedics that are on trial. Mr. I can't say his last name. Mr. Cooper is one of them, and the other one was Lieutenant Chuniak, I think is the way you say his name. They're the ones on trial. So on day 3 and 3 and part of 4, they did the direct and cross examination of the driver of the rig, the firefighter EMT. He's now a paramedic, but at the time he was an EMT. Then the last of the 4 crew, he took the stand on day 4. And it was sort of a rinse and repeat type thing. This is why I didn't do a show. Again, he could not remember any of that. And they, on cross, they talked about, how many calls have you done every year? And, kind of explain why he has no memory of it. And a lot of what he was testifying to is by virtue of him having watched the video. And the judge was trying to get them to ask questions about what he remembers, not what he's seeing on the video. And they were having a hard time doing that. I don't know why, but so that's really what went on with him. Then the next person on the stand, nothing earth shattering from him anyway. The next person on the stand was the medical director of the firefighter paramedics. And I'm going to come back to him because what he has to say is significant. And I'm going to skip to the next witness. So the next witness after that was one of the sergeants that was on the scene. Now I didn't catch his name, and I meant to go back in my notes to find his name because there were 2 sergeants on that scene. Okay, this would have been Sergeant Dale Leonard. Okay, so he was on the stand, and listening to him, I got the impression that he was blaming the firefighters. He kept reiterating that they were not providing any care. They were all standing around. They were not providing any care. He did admit that the police were, at the time that the firefighters arrived, the police were in charge of security of the scene. And in fact, even after they were there, he said they were in charge of the security of the scene. He said that Elijah McLean was secure by the time these firefighters got to the scene. However, the defense pointed out, well, didn't they have to pick him up and slam him back to the ground? Wasn't he still struggling? Well, yes. Didn't you have to put your foot across his ankles to secure him when he tried to kick one of the officers after the firefighters got there? Well, yes. I don't know how secure that is. So when when they mentioned that his officers had slammed Mr. McLean to the ground, he said, no, they were repositioning him. And every time they tried to get him to agree that he had been slammed to the ground, he's like, "No, I agree that he was being repositioned." Is that how you reposition somebody? You slam them to the ground? I don't think so. Okay. And he did admit that the police remained in control of security of the scene, even after the firefighters got there. And he agreed that there was some period of time where everyone was just standing around waiting for the ambulance. He did say that what he thought he was witnessing was someone who was suffering from excited delirium. And he said he had been trained in how to recognize excited delirium in people. So that was his testimony. Clearly biased against the fire department. The fire department is doing this, and the paramedics are doing this. Yeah, pointing fingers. They need to learn how to work together. This is when I was a risk manager in the hospital. This is a big, huge issue in medical care. Handoff. For example, when somebody goes from the emergency department and they get admitted and they're going up to the floor, the handoff that takes place is usually not so great. So I had to do a lot of training on how to hand off a patient. You don't just wheel them up in a gurney and put them in the hospital bed and walk away. There has to be a conversation between the person with the most knowledge of what's going on with this patient down in the emergency room and the nurse that's going to be taking care of this patient. And it should be done at the bedside where, in front of the patient. So another example would be someone coming out of surgery. They've gone to the recovery room, but they're being admitted, and the handoff is a big deal. And in this, I didn't see like an official handoff, like someone who was in charge, police officer wise, of that situation that was going on there, reporting. The the first thing out of my mouth would have been, okay, when these firefighters showed up, it should have been, all right, who is in charge here? Who do I give report to? Um, and you figure out, okay, it's one of these firefighter paramedics. All right, let me tell you what went on here. He's vomited. We had to use a carotid hold. He was unconscious. He was vomiting. All this stuff into his ski mask. So I think there's a big problem with handoff here between these two agencies, and I hope that as the outcome of all this, that they're now working together to work on handoffs. So that's just my opinion. So the next person on stand was a forensic toxicologist, not a doctor, a lab person who, he works for a private lab, and he got a blood sample from Elijah McLean from the medical examiner. And the medical examiner, who testifies next, said that that blood came from the hospital. It had been drawn by the hospital the night Elijah McLean came in, 23:39, so 11:39 on August 24th. They drew blood. So samples of that blood were sent to this forensic toxicologist to see if there were any drugs in his system. Because they thought, what they were seeing was excited delirium and that he must be on something. Well, the result was that he had a ketamine level in his bloodstream of 1,400 nanograms per milliliter. And that is said to be a therapeutic dose. Now, this guy said he knows of fatalities that occurred when ketamine was at a level of maybe 2,400 nanograms, that he never saw any fatalities associated with a level of 1,400 nanograms. But he said you can't really, ketamine's not like alcohol. Like, it hasn't been studied enough to know what to expect from a particular person at a particular level. I mean, with alcohol, we know that if your level comes back 0.8 or greater, you're intoxicated. But there's a lot of factors that go into that: the weight of the patient, the tolerance of the patient, other things going on with the patient. So anyway, this guy said that this was a therapeutic level. And then when prompted, he said, because he forgot about the marijuana. And they're like, was there anything else? Are you sure you didn't miss any? Wasn't there something else found? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. They had to refresh his recollection. Oh, yeah. I recall he had marijuana in his system. He said that did not, that was not at any, he did explain to the jury that the part of the marijuana that shows up on these tests is the Delta 9 THC, and that he did have that in his system. But just like the ketamine, there's not been enough studies to know at what level people act a certain way or not. So you can't really look at that level and say, oh, you know, this is what he would have been like. You just can't. So that was his role there. So the medical examiner was the next person on the stand. He was Mr. McLean was pronounced deceased by the doctor that we heard from earlier in the trial on August 27th. So he came in that Saturday night, August 24th. As you recall, he was been put on a ventilator. He was in a coma. They were doing brain cooling, and they did an apnea test to see if he would take a breath once his CO2 built up after he was off the ventilator, and he had no brain activity. He never took a breath. So he was pronounced deceased on August 27th. The autopsy was done on September 3rd. And this medical examiner explained that in this county, they have a coroner. Now, not everybody, he said roughly half the country has coroners and the other half just go with medical examiners. But in this county, they have a coroner, and the coroner can hire these medical examiner to do autopsies as part of, but the coroner is the one that really determines the manner of death. The cause of death in this county is determined by the medical examiner after an autopsy, and then that information goes together with all of the other evidence, the body cam footage and everything like that. That goes to the coroner for determination of the manner of death. In other words, homicide, suicide, accident, that kind of thing. And he explained that in the 6 years or so that he had been working with the coroner, they'd never had a disagreement about the manner of death. But in this case, the manner of death was undetermined. And initially, the cause of death was undetermined. And we're going to explain why that is. But um, the cause of death, he said, in this case was complications of the administration of ketamine. He explained to the jury that his brain had been deprived of oxygen for a period of time, resulting in brain death. That he found that when he examined the lungs, that he had vomited into the lungs. He examined the heart, and he said there was no evidence of a heart attack. There was no evidence of heart disease. There was no evidence of an infection in the heart. He said he did have a small LAD, which is the left anterior descending artery. It's from the heart to the lungs, but he did not feel like that played a role in this death. And the reason he thinks that is because, initially he said that it did because it was smaller than normal. You would think it would be delivering less oxygen to the heart. But he said this guy was a runner, and he would run from 3 to 5 miles a day, and he didn't have a heart attack then. So he said apparently his body had adjusted to this small LAD, and he was doing fine. So he doesn't think it played a role in his physical exertion here. So he did admit that the ketamine, the toxicologist he got the report, and he admitted that it was not at a lethal level. So he did not believe that this was an overdose. Um, he initially said that the cause of death was undetermined, and he said the reason was that he didn't feel like at the time he had enough information. They were still gathering information, interviewing police officers, body cam footage, and so he requested all of this information, and it took him time to go through all of this. But once he said he saw the body cam footage, he was convinced that it was this administration of ketamine that caused his death, complications from the administration of ketamine. He said it was just too much for this person. And he said there was um, intense physical exertion, which will cause a lactic acid buildup in your body. You know how when you exert yourself a lot, and you're breathing really hard, and your muscles are screaming at you. That's a buildup of lactic acid. So if you sit down and you rest for a while and maybe you get a nice massage, that's why massages are so great after physical activity, because you can just massage that lactic acid right out of your system. But if you sit down and you rest, let your body come back to normal, that lactic acid level will go down. So um, this acidosis, this intense physical exertion also caused, in addition to the acidosis, it has also caused hypoxia. So he wasn't getting enough oxygen. And this medical examiner was very careful to say that he was not sure if the police department contributed to this man's death. So what he was saying is that he doesn't understand when the vomiting started. Did is it because he vomited and aspirated after the carotid? He said, when somebody has this carotid hold and goes unconscious, when you come back to consciousness, you can be nauseous. Um, and that may have caused the vomiting and caused him to aspirate. But he believes that he also vomited in the ambulance, so he doesn't know if he aspirated then. So because he's not sure, he said if he vomited on the scene, then he would have ruled, if he could prove that that's when he aspirated, he would have put the manner of death as homicide by the police department. And he did explain to the jury that homicide doesn't, you can't, when a medical examiner says homicide, all they're saying is that it was death by the hands of another person. And homicide in the legal community has a whole different meaning. Um, for example, he said you can have something that's ruled a homicide where, you know, like someone who gets the death penalty and they're put to death. That's death at the hands of another person, but it's justified and it's excused, but it would still be ruled a homicide. But in the legal community, nobody would be getting tried for homicide. I don't know if that does that explain it to you. And the other example he uses is, for example, sometimes we'll put accident down there. Um, if someone died in a motor vehicle crash, it's ruled accident, even though someone might be charged with drunk driving, or as a result of running into this person. So I think I've explained that okay. I hope so. He This is another thing he mentioned that I thought was really interesting, and it brought out something that I did not know. So he said, we are no longer allowed to use the term excited delirium. And right away they were like, can we ask, can you ask the jury to disregard that? It goes against the court order. So apparently the court ordered that the jury not know that. Because apparently now it's called severe agitation. They don't use excited delirium anymore. Interesting. And then the last thing he said on direct examination was that he didn't feel like the marijuana played any significant role in his cause of death or in this fatality, he said. Yeah. So now let's go back to, this is the most interesting. I'm saving the best for last. We're going to go back to the medical director of the firefighter paramedics. Now he was put on the stand so that the prosecution could introduce into evidence the ketamine protocol. And then after he testified, they didn't, on direct examination, they didn't admit the policy, which I thought it was weird. Why not? Why are you don't want the jury to see it? Something caused them to change their mind about admitting that ketamine protocol into the evidence. So on cross examination, the defense attorney made sure that they introduced it. Very interesting. So he said that they developed that ketamine protocol in the late summer, early fall of 2018. And everyone had to be trained on this ketamine protocol. And if you weren't trained on the protocol, then you were not allowed to use this drug. And it was just the paramedics. EMTs could not use the drug. Regular firefighters couldn't use the drug. And they felt like it was a very safe, effective use of this drug. The medical examiner said that if you're following the protocol correctly, there's nothing wrong with using ketamine. But, and he said, if you are following your training, it is safe for use. So here is, I teased you guys with this last night, so I'm finally going to tell you. At the time that this protocol was put into place, there was nationally a ketamine shortage. They couldn't get any ketamine. Now, I've been thinking all along, why were they waiting for the ambulance to come with the ketamine? You've got you've got 6 bags you've got with you. A bag for airway, a bag for trauma, a bag for pediatric, 6 bags. Why are you waiting for the ambulance? Because they couldn't get any ketamine, the fire department. They didn't get ketamine until the fall of 2019, after this event. But Falk, the ambulance company, had ketamine. They had gotten some in 2018, they got ketamine. So if the paramedics wanted to use ketamine, they had to wait for the ambulance to get there. And in this case, 6 minutes. Yeah, between the time they got there and the time the ambulance got there, 6 minutes. Well, meanwhile, this guy's struggling with the officers. He's kicking them. Yeah, yes. I thought that was real. That was a game changer for me. Now the question is, should they have given that ketamine knowing that he had vomited? Did they know he had vomited? And if they did know, should they have administered that ketamine? So I'm curious as to now I'm thinking, okay, are they going to ask this guy what he thought about whether they followed the protocol or not? They didn't ask. Well, they tried to, and there was an objection by the prosecution, and they said, oh, this is beyond the scope of direct examination. And the defense attorney's like, fine, I'm done questioning him, but I will call him in my case in chief. And then they dismissed this guy, and the judge said, you're going to be recalled during the defendant's. You're not released from your subpoena. You will be called during the defendant's case. So we're going to hear from this medical director again. And I'm sure during that period of time, he's going to let us know whether he thinks they followed the ketamine protocol. Yeah, very interesting testimony. All right, that's it. Now, I didn't I haven't listened to the cross examination of the medical examiner, but I don't think we're going to hear anything earth shattering there. But I'll let you know tomorrow in the Friday edition of Crafting and Crime Daily. Meanwhile, I'm going to work on my diamond painting gnomes, and I will finish cleaning out my shed today. My my electric tricycle should be here tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. I'm pumped. I've decided I'm going to put a lock on my gate that goes to the backyard. I'm ordering a sign from Amazon that says "Beware of the dogs." And then I'm not riding it, it's going to be in the shed because I've been cleaning out this shed for 2 days, and I got to finish that up today because after today we're getting bad weather again. So it's going to be in the shed, and the shed's going to be locked, and the bike is going to be locked inside the shed just in case they get past the gate and the lock in the shed. Yeah, it's going to be like Fort Knox. Anyway, I'm not about theft anymore. Someone stole a package, an Amazon package, off my porch, and I was pissed. I mean, Amazon's replacing everything, but man, y'all will keep your hands off my packages. Okay? It's Christmas. Buy your own stuff. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow on Crafting and Crime Daily. Bye, everybody.